What is good? We're back. We got our man, Cody Carpentier. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Cross town.
Cross town, yeah. Charleston natives here. Couldn't quite get together on this one, but we'll do one in person soon. Chev, what's up, man?
You know me, brother. Any day on this side of the dirt's a good one.
That's right. That's right. We got an NFL mock where this will come out on a Monday before the NFL draft. We're going to take one run through. There's 7 rounds here. We're surely not going to get through 7 rounds. We're going to try to make it through at least one, might get through 2. We're just going to be talking general NFL talk. We might go into a fantasy lane, might just be straight NFL talk. So a little different from what we normally do where we're heavy fantasy, but wanted to get a little NFL draft talk in. I figured you two guys were some of the guys to do it with. So we've got the 33rd team mock draft here. I believe this is Kyle Crabb's work. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Krabs. Yeah.
All right. So he's got the 101 Tennessee Titans taking Cam Ward. I know you're into it at this point, Chev. You're a Tennessee guy. We're feeling pretty good about that.
I mean, I damn near went vision deaf just now. Just looking at and thinking about Cam Ward, War Daddy Ward in two-tone blue. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about it. You could say that.
Cody, do you share similar sentiments, or do you think that the Titans should be doing something else with the number 1 pick right here?
No, I think from a team building standpoint, they're in a spot where, you could talk yourself into the Hunter thing or the Abdul Carter thing for sure. But I think the people in Tennessee are probably done with the Will Levis experiment and,
Yes.
move on to Ward and let this thing go for what it's going to be with under Mike Morganzi as the GM. I did think it was quite interesting this past week. Cam Ward came out and ranked the 4 best receivers in the NFL, and he listed Calvin Ridley and Treylon Burks in that top 4, which was he's just getting out ahead of himself to prepare for these receivers. I don't know, man. It's the lock of the century at this point. We're a couple days out. It's for sure Cam Ward going to Tennessee. I like it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
It's gone to like minus 700 on the betting odds board. So, unless something drastic happens, it is locked in, locked and loaded, and I could not be more excited to move on from the fucking Will Levis era.
Well, I think it's the right move. Like you guys said, you could go in a different direction. I personally like Cam. I don't think that he should have gotten as much shade thrown on him as maybe it seemed like they did through this process with the quarterback. So we'll keep it moving. At pick 2, the Browns take Travis Hunter. Cody, I'll start with you over here. I got mixed feelings on Hunter. I know he's a great player. I know he could do whatever he wants on either side of the ball and be very good at it. Now this week he's come out and said he'd rather quit than not play both sides of the ball, which, take that kind of for what it is. People are real on the wide receiver side of things with him, and Cleveland seems to be one of those teams that's really on the wide receiver side of things. I don't believe he's somebody who can play both sides of the ball every snap in professional football like he did in college. I understand that there's, more plays and it's faster and all that. That's just a whole different ball game when you get to this next level. What are your thoughts on sort of Travis Hunter? And I'm sure we'll have this conversation maybe could turn a little longer here.
For sure. I would agree with you. I don't think he can play every single snap in on offense and defense in the NFL. It's just an unrealistic expectation. Is he the best wide receiver in the class? I view it that way. I would have him graded as the top wide receiver and the top cornerback, respective. If you pulled him and you cut him directly in half, or if you cloned him and you just said one guy's here, one guy's here, Travis Hunter Jr. and Travis Harrison, right? One guy would be the top receiver, one guy would be the top cornerback. That's just how it is with what he brings to the table. His ball skills are immaculate for a cornerback, and he proved that in his time at Colorado. And from a wide receiver perspective, he's not a guy that you think like goes up and can be a contested catch guy, but he is. And he's maybe not the most defined route runner, but he can get the job done. And I think the way he's just so driven to do each and everything that he's done to this point at Colorado that the biggest difficulty I think you'll have at the NFL level is one, wanting to play both sides, which he'll get to do. He'll get to play. I would assume if it's the Browns, like the Browns have leaked out that they predominantly want to play receiver. They also have Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward. They have good corners, but he's too talented not to play on that side of the ball. He'll play on both sides of the ball, but definitely not going to touch the field every single snap. The one thing that I think he'll have trouble with is potentially trying to put that ego aside and working to perfect the craft on at least one side and not be like, well, I have to practice here one day and here the other day, or here have to practice and here have to practice. And I want to make sure I can get both the reps. And it's like, he'll understand the recovery side of things because he's done that at Colorado and Deion's helped him with that. But in college, you can get away with not perfecting your craft. In the NFL, you can't. You'll just, guys will surpass you at the position. You'll burn out. All these different things will come through. That's what I think is the biggest issue with the Travis Hunter thing is I don't want to see one, him burn out, and two, him not get to his full potential on one of the sides of the ball, let alone both the sides of the ball.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you said. And to kind of hammer home what we're expecting here, if he were to play full-time, both sides of the ball, let's say they play the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. You've got to go and cover Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and then turn around and get open against Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. That whole, and I mean, I guess they released Darius Slay, but I was going to say Darius Slay too. So that's just not feasible. And we're talking about Darius Slay. These guys are professionals. There's a story out there where Devonta Smith's talking about Darius Slay, telling him exactly what route he's going to run before he runs it. And that's the level of attention to detail that you have to have. And then if he's got to play one position, it's got to be corner because you can't move. I've said this numerous times now. You can't moonlight at corner. There's too much communication that goes on amongst that group, that you just can't not be in those meetings. So if he's going to moonlight on one side of the ball, it's going to be at receiver. And so what is that? 30 snaps a game, maybe on the high end. I mean, now you're talking about him playing 90 snaps because corners don't come off the field ever. So that, it's excellent that Cleveland wants him to play receiver. That would boost his fantasy stock for sure. No questions asked. But at the same time, what are we doing? Like, I think he's probably the best corner prospect since PS2. So, like, what are we doing if he's not playing corner?
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I heard, I don't remember who it was the other day, but I heard somebody on a show say, that the secondary might be the second most communicative bunch of all the outside of maybe offensive line, that you have to talk and you have to know and you have to be in those meetings. You can't, you alluded to it, Cody, you just said it, Chev, like, I don't see, it can't really go the other way. And I think to get everything out of him, I think you kind of have to play him at corner and moonlight him at wide receiver, right? It just doesn't make sense to go the other way. So fantasy wise, I've been fairly hesitant with him as an asset in the first round of your fantasy drafts, right? But as a player here, should the Browns go a different way? Like, if you're not going to go full-time receiver and you're going to go corner with moonlighting at receiver, and I don't know that he wants to just play full-time receiver now, and that's something that we've never gotten an answer for. He says he wants to play both sides of the ball. To play both sides of the ball, it's a totally different, like the beating that your body has to take. Like, I understand the treatment, and he's all about ball and all that stuff, but like, it's a completely different level of treatment as well. Like, to be going up against those corners that you mentioned, Chev, and then also there's the ridiculous defensive linemen who are lurking around on the field. There's good linebackers lurking around on the field, like the punter, and people you say what you want, people are going to be out to get him. Like, it's just, they're going to want to put their stamp on Travis Hunter, and he's not. If he was DK Metcalf doing this with his size and shit, we might have a different conversation about, but he's not. He's 185 pounds. So Cody, you can take that where you want and then go with the second part of the answer. Is this the pick the Browns should make if he's playing corner?
And I think you're continuing the spot on thing here of, as much as you can think the recovery is going to be what the recovery is, we are all in this room not 21, 22, 23 years old anymore. And we remember what the recovery was like at that age versus where, I think I'm younger than both of you guys, but even
How dare you?
I think I am, right? I think I'm 20. I think I'm 28.
Oh, yeah. You got a two in your
yeah. You got a two in front of your big age. Yeah, man. You're a baby.
All right. So the point is, like, I'm even still like experiencing this. Like, I'm like, my recovery is not quite the same it was 3-4 years ago. And he's going to experience that. And Chev, you said it a minute ago. You're like, all right, well, he's going to be going against Devonta Smith, right, on defense. And then he's going to turn around and get to go against Quignon and DeJean. Well, guess what? The next week, it's going to be Lamb and Diggs. The next week, it's going to be Terry McLaurin. The next week, it's going to be Malik Neighbors. It's not going to be some scrub from Oklahoma State, some scrub from Kansas State. Oh, you got to get up for Alec Manor. Oh, you mean the guy that just dunked you for 200? Yeah, that guy. Remember that Alec Manor ain't Malik Neighbors. He ain't CeeDee Lamb, and he got you. So it's like, I love Travis Hunter, but there's going to be times like Torrey Horton went for $160 on him. These guys that are fourth, fifth round picks in this year's class, like Hunter's great, but there is a toll that it puts on you to play the 120, 130, 140 snaps a game. I do think he's worth the pick, 100%. But would I make the pick? No, I'd take Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter would be my play to play opposite of Myles Garrett. And if I picked an optimal spot, the optimal spot from a fantasy perspective is definitely New England, because he just gets to go out there and he'll play a little bit, I think he'd play predominantly. He'd be the X opposite of Stephon Diggs, attached to Drake May for the next decade. Mm-hmm. You don't need him at corner. They got Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez. But the Browns, I think it's the pick. Like they've basically said, I think it's bad. I think it's wrong, but I think it's, reality at this point.
It's too difficult to say, hey, man, this is something we've never seen before. And, we're an organization that's not used to, we've wasted Myles Garrett's Hall of Fame career. Like, let's try to do something to work in the direction of getting another unique unicorn style talent into the building. But the pairing of Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, is going to make offensive tackles not sleep for years upon years upon years. Like him being able to, and I guess, Casey, we can move on to pick 3 here and just start talking about Abdul Carter.
Yeah. Real quick. Again, just the division that the Browns are in, like Abdul Carter makes more sense to how that division goes and what it is. It's the black and blue division. That's the defense can reign supreme. Obviously you got Lamar and Burrow in there, but Baltimore's always got a good defense. Steelers always have a good defense. Since he's had a formidable defense for a minute there, and then kind of fell apart there. And Cleveland's, that's kind of been their calling card as well. Their defense has been solid, and you just brought Myles Garrett back, and now you're selling him a bill of goods, and you're bringing in Travis Hunter. I agree with you. It's not about Travis Hunter for this pick. I just feel like, and then what bill of goods are you selling to your team? Who's playing quarterback?
Kirko. It's got to be Kirko.
If it's not any of these guys, it's got to be like, I'm not going into the season
Joe
with
Flacco?
Chuck at 33. Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett.
Definitely not Kenny Pickett. Never Kenny Pickett. Not even if there's a fire.
All right. So the Giants go 3. They go Abdul Carter here. Not Shedeur. Again, for me, if I'm the Giants, I get the Abdul Carter pick. If I'm the GM and the coach, I think Shedeur buys me another season. I think it makes sense. Jameis and Russ are not saving your season, dude. They're not. They're just not. Both of those guys are getting fired, and I just feel like it's the optimal chance. I think that's a good landing spot for Shedeur. What do you guys think here? Chev, I'll let you take this one first with Abdul Carter.
You're making a strength of strength, but you're also making this pick for whoever the next GM and coach are going to be. So, you probably win 7 games at best with Jameis and Russ at the helm. It could be fun. You've got some pieces along that defensive line. You've got Kayvon. You've got Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best defensive tackles in football. He's in the question for, he's unquestionably top 3, and that's he ain't 3. So, you have some real talent in the trenches there. I mean, if they get, if they can land that pick with, Abdul Carter being the pick here, and just that gets Kayvon Thibodeau to stop being a weirdo and be good at football again. You've got bookends now. You've got a monster in the middle. Like, you're starting to piece it together to where you can whoop people's ass in the trenches. And that's how you're going to have to win football games with a team like, with what the Commanders, I almost called them the Redskins, what the Commanders just did with going and getting Laramie Tunsil, and the Eagles having the best offensive line in the history of mankind. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to have to beat those teams. You're going to have to beat them in the trenches. You're not going to out-athlete them and expect to win, because they're just going to hit you in the mouth 50 times a game. So I love the pick here. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of meat on the bone in terms of, his abilities and development as a pass rusher, being that this is his first year that he's put his hand in the dirt, but he's just that freaky of an athlete. I mean, I think he's more athletic than Micah Parsons, and he's already more refined coming in the door as a pass rusher. So it's scary stuff in terms of what his actual ceiling could be. Like, I was trying to think about it, and I was like, man, he kind of moves. He moves a lot like Von Miller, but Von was a seasoned pass rusher and had incredible get off. That's his calling card, is how quickly he can get off the ball. So I think that's the type of ceiling, though, with Abdul Carter, is like Von Miller, or somewhere along those lines of really, really, really talented people that can get after the quarterback. What do you think, Cody?
Aren't these picks? Everything we've said, I haven't said anything yet about Abdul Carter, but everything that we've talked about here is pretty backwards. Like, yeah, it's pretty like Travis Hunter's the fit here for the Giants. He's the guy that should be playing. Paulson Adebo was like the 55th ranked cornerback in coverage rating this last year, according to PFF. He's playing opposite Deonte Banks, who was the first round pick 2 years ago. Like, it should be Hunter starting cornerback for the Giants, playing 15 to 25 snaps on offense for the Giants, and Carter starting edge opposite of Myles Garrett. Everything that was explained here. You look at the divisions, you look at the way the teams are built, the structure with the Giants, the edge rushers, like, it doesn't make sense to me. It feels like this is the way it's going to go, and they both need quarterbacks, which you brought up a minute ago. I still think there's, a lot of helium that is warranted over the course of the last week about both of these teams potentially, trying to, I don't know what the word is, outbid each other to get up into the 20s to potentially get a Dart or a Shedeur, to double up and have 2 first-round picks, whether it's Carter and Shedeur or Hunter and Shedeur or whatever it is. I don't care, or Dart, whatever. But they both need to get a quarterback, right? You can't go into the season with the Pickett and the Flacco. You can't go into the season with Russ and Winston, because, like you said, like, it doesn't matter if Russ even wins you 9 games, because there's no future there. There's no, oh, well, guess what? Next year. Okay, well, guess what? Now you have 9 wins. You're not in the playoffs and you're picking 18. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, now you're just twice as screwed, because next year's quarterback class might be better, but you're still out of pocket. So, I don't think that Shedeur deserves to be the 3rd overall pick either. That's the thing. He's not good enough to be, start of the class. So sometimes quarterbacks get that bump. I love the fit, but I just think that the whole thing is just, like I said, backwards, in that Abdul should be 2 and Travis Hunter should be 3, but it won't be that way.
You got any thoughts before we move on, Chev?
I mean, if we're gonna, we have to assume that this is what they're gonna do. But I mean, if they both need quarterbacks, like, quarterbacks do get steamed up. So you have to find that answer at some point, and banking on trading back into the first round is, to me, that's a losing strategy without mortgaging your ability to build around that person, whoever it is that you select. So, I think, it works, but at the same time, it's, again, this is the crowning jewel of some other GM's haul. He just gets a year early start because they're cleaning house in both places, most likely, if they make these selections.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this late Shedeur run with the Giants?
I mean, I I thought that was the pick. Like quarterbacks get steamed up. No matter how you feel about Shedeur, we've seen him stand tall, and get the crap beat out of him for the last 2 years. And when he's kept clean, he had the highest completion percentage in the entire NCAA. Granted, yeah, sure, it was some screens, but I mean, he's having to throw layered balls. They run, we've seen them run some cover 2, but like Pat Shurmur didn't do him any favors at the University of Colorado with the way that with their passing game design. And a lot of it was throwing contested balls to Travis Hunter this past year. So we're going to steam up quarterbacks. I don't have a problem with them taking Shedeur because he's going to be, the media is not going to break him the way that it could break a guy who's used to being told how awesome they are for the entirety of their career. And I think that has a value that we can't really quantify. And so I would love to have him right here, but if they're not going to do this, then they're just not going to do it. So, yeah.
What do you?
Yeah, I got the same thoughts. I think he, like you said, the media's not going to break him. He's the most mentally strong quarterback that I can remember. Like it's the toughest position to evaluate because it's very hard to get into a quarterback's mind. But the one thing that Shedeur's really given us is kind of a look inside of his real process. And if you follow along any of the videos that his brother makes, Deion Jr. and stuff like that, you really get to see behind the scenes and how these guys really operate. I think that's going to be sort of a feather in his cap through this whole thing, is that no matter if he falls to 20, if he falls to the second round, if he goes 3, I think regardless, he'll be fine unless the team he goes to is absolutely, a terrible offensive line with no weapons, which could be the Browns.
I got Judy and Tillman and Njoku. Like we've seen that offense work with everybody but Deshaun Watson.
But the offensive line is getting old, and you just said Tillman, Judy. You didn't say Neighbors, right? You didn't say DK Metcalf and George Pickens. It's a different level. It's a different level, right?
It is a different level. For now. I will concede that. I mean,
Tougher lane.
It is a tougher go.
Let's keep it moving here. Patriots take Will Campbell, offensive tackle here. Seems like that would be on brand for New England. Spent a lot of money in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. Come in here in the draft, focusing on the offensive side of the ball. The trenches have got to get better. Travis Hunter is somebody who gets mocked to here as well. If for some reason, they slide one way or another, but a offensive lineman seems like a very New England pick, and they kind of need it. What do we think about Will Campbell here? Going to the, real quick around the room, Cody, you can take it first.
I think it's a tackle no matter what. They brought in Morgan Moses to play the right side, 10-year vet. They spent all their money everywhere else. Like they spent it on the cornerback, Carlton Davis. They spent it on the receiver and Diggs. They spent it on the defensive tackle and the edge rusher. And that's the Mason Graham. That's the Abdul Carter. That's the Tet McMillan. That's the Travis Hunter. That's all those different things that they checked off. They didn't check off the left tackle spot. And this past week when Vrabel had his press conference, he was asked about the tackle position and if there's any tackles ready to play in year one. And he said, yes, I do think there's some good left tackles that can start on day one. And he hasn't said names per se over the course of the last 2-3 months, but he's basically inferred an SEC tackle that he proved he could do it in the SEC. And the only 2 guys that have question at left tackle with arm length and things are Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. So it's Will Campbell. I would say right now, 90% of my belief is it's going to be Will Campbell. And that's what this mock has. Part of me deep down.
Should it be Membou?
I don't think it'll be Membou because Membou's a predominantly right side.
On the right side, yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, the inkling part of me that does not think it'll be Will Campbell actually has some thought that it could be Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons, like two other left tackles where a lot of the rumbling we've heard is that the left tackle side, if Simmons never tore his patellar tendon this year for Ohio State, he would be the first tackle off the board. Kelvin Banks, you go back and I talk about the flat circle of the NFL draft. If you go back to, when NFL draft conversations begin, which is like September, October, November, versus where they've gotten the last 2 weeks, it's a kind of a circle. You start one way and you get to this just crazy time, which is post combine, and then you come all the way right back to some of the same thoughts that you had at the beginning because they were always true. It's just that you get into the draft industrial complex and it's all BS. You come back out the other side and all this Kelvin Banks falls to the 20s. Ends up being Kelvin Banks is still a top 10 pick. And so I still think Banks should be probably in the conversation there, and Simmons from Ohio State. But obviously Campbell's getting all the glow for obvious reasons. I do think this is probably going to end up being the pick.
You do some stuff for Texas. Banks had at one point in the season was like 1 sack or some crazy stat throughout. And then I get injured partially through the season or.
Yeah, he had an injury, he missed a game. But the thing is, this guy, like I said, I do cover Texas for Orange Bloods. He started 3 seasons, the last 3 seasons. He started as a true freshman, came in June, was starting in August, started week 2 against Alabama, and it was Will Anderson, Dallas Turner. Gave up 1 sack, that whole season, 1 sack in 2023. I think it was like 2 this year. And the one game that is really getting him, or hung up is the Mykel Williams, Jalon Walker thing. And everyone just keeps talking about the Georgia game, but it's like, man, this guy's also got 42 other games that he played and started and dominated. So it's kind of confusing to me, but it is what it is.
Gotcha. What do you think, Shev?
I mean, I think it's Will Campbell. I mean, that's the most vrabelest Vrabes that could ever Vrabe. As somebody who has watched how he's operated for quite some time as my former head coach. I mean, Will Campbell's about as battle tested as you could see. I mean, as you could, imagine. And you can go to pretty much any cut up of Will Campbell and see him going to work against all the top rushers in the SEC. There was a clip I saw of him. If you go and watch the South Carolina game, the first 2 series, I believe, of the game, he's lined up. He's got Dylan Stewart, the phenom, who won't be eligible until 2027, lined up on him. And that's not going very well for Dylan Stewart, which it shouldn't against, an NFL caliber tackle. And then they moved Kyle Kennard over there, or it's not Kyle Kennard. Is it Kyle Kennard?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's also a basketball player. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't like conflating the two. But they moved him over there and it was more of a battle, but he just wasn't ready. And if you saw what Dylan Stewart's capable of, you know exactly how significant that is. Now, he does have some losses, more losses than you would like from a guy that you're going to take in the top 5, but those are all against guys who are going to play on Sunday too. So like it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. And I think that he's plenty good enough. Like if you're going to hold the arm length thing against him, you also have to take into account that like he's been doing this against NFL guys for the last couple of years, and LSU's constantly pumped. So he's in that environment and he's figured out what I can do and what I can't do. And he's extremely battle tested, just like Kelvin Banks. So, and you don't have necessarily the injury question. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. It secures the blind side for Drake May. And again, you support your rookie quarterback and you maximize the window, Texans. But we don't have to go there right now. Will Campbell, I love it there. Let's move on.
All right, I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit through some of these. We got Jacksonville taking Mason Graham out of Michigan. Anybody upset with that pick there? Should it be somebody else?
Not at all.
I think it's right. Given Gladstone's tenure with the Rams and what he learned there with the success of Aaron Donald. One thing I did hear the last couple of days from a reporter that I trust down in Jacksonville. The only other name that he leaked out here, which I always thought was completely crap, was Ashton Jeanty. And he said, if Graham's there, they're taking Graham, but it would not shock me if they took Ashton Jeanty. And for the life of me, I don't get it. Because I don't think Travis Etienne's bad, and Tank Bigsby showed he could play football. So it's like,
right.
I don't get it, but I just don't think you can pass up on guys like Mason Graham fifth overall.
No. I mean, he's uniquely gifted in that he's really, really strong and really agile. He holds the point and he can get after the passer a little bit. He knows how to use his hands. He knows how to use his hands really well. And this has been the slam dunk pick. I've done a bunch of mocks, and that's kind of where I slot him into that place every single time because it's building a strength for the Jaguars. You've got Trayvon Walker, you've got Josh Hines-Allen. Now you add in, you've got Eric Armstead, who didn't play up to his potential this year, but if he gets back to form, now you've got a fearsome foursome that's going to be a problem, for years to come. I mean, again, if Eric Armstead is not cooked, this D-line has just become probably a top 8 unit in the NFL. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a terrible unit last year. Terrible against the run, even worse against getting pressure. Jacksonville needs it. Makes some sense. 6, here comes Jeanty going to the Raiders. This has been pretty much the whole cycle here. We think this is it. We think this is the destination, Chev.
I think so, man. I mean, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly want to establish it. I mean, Chip Kelly's run game ranks by year as a play caller in NFL, 1st, 4th, 9th, 14th. So never worse than 14th. And he was top 4 his first 2 years in the NFL. And, that last year in San Francisco, you could almost throw it out because it was really, really strange. So I think that's the pick. I mean, it doesn't make process sense per se, but Ashton Jeanty could be that type of difference maker. I mean, Cody, I heard what you said, and people started trying to kind of chiming in saying that you said he was Rashad Penny. I understand what you're saying. I just it's in the range of outcomes for him to be Rashad Penny. But at the time that pick was made, nobody was like, oh, well, this guy's only going to play one full season and then be done. So
that's the whole point.
I would prefer for them to do something else here, but taking Ashton Jeanty at face value, his profile as a receiver, what he just did, it's hard to pass that up. And I mean, if they don't pass it up, I wouldn't be upset about it.
That was the whole point about the Jeanty thing with Penny is you thought I was making fun of you, but I was not. Yeah. I agreed with what you were saying. I appreciate that because you're I got it. And then I was like, wait, does he get it? But I get it. Jeanty, it's hard to argue against the Jeanty pick anywhere, to be honest with you. Bad process, sure. Should they go right tackle? Sure. The one common denominator between the Pats, Jags, Raiders, and Carolina, when you talk to people around those teams, is it's Mason Graham's name comes up for all these. So the only avenue I think the Raiders don't go Jeanty would be if Graham is there. But I think Graham will be gone. So Jeanty seems like the locked on pick. You obviously saw what Pete Carroll did with Marshawn Lynch. Incredible contact balance. Probably the best contact balance we've seen in a running back since Alvin Kamara. And Kamara obviously was the entire offense for New Orleans. This is a home run pick. And I think for fantasy, it only continues to make that 101 even worth more and more. Yeah,
absolutely.
Stylistically, schematically, I think it fits really well. But I agree. I think you attack the trenches on any of these top teams. I'm never going to be upset if you attack the trenches, but the fans don't love it. But if it works, it's going to work for a long time. So 7, Jets go trenches. They've been trying to rebuild this offensive line seemingly for forever. They took Fashanu last year. They have Tippmann from Wisconsin, I believe, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Simpson brought in from the Raiders the year before. So this would kind of give them a complete line that you feel pretty good about of all the named starters across the board, right?
I love this. I think it's boring as hell if you're a Jets fan and people want to see Tyler Warren come off the board here. That's been one of the other ones that's been considered. You're giving Justin Fields a weapon. But I think you also can look later in the draft. You can look at Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, something later. You want to get a tight end and you're going to be just happy with it. You take the right tackle in Membou. You protect Justin Fields with Fashanu on one side, Membou on the other side, and obviously Vera Tucker, Tippmann, and Simpson on the inside. This is an offensive line now. And now you get to maybe see another year of Justin Fields learning. I don't think Justin Fields is going to be some, special thing, but another year learning behind a good offensive line can only benefit him. So I think that the right process would be Membou, take tight end later.
I mean, this is hand in glove. This is peak. So Dan Campbell's coaching tree is starting to blossom. And if they're going to follow that model of taking a cellar dweller team, you do it by building the trenches. And Armand Membou he's so nasty in the run game. The combine just kind of accentuated and then boosted him up even further, in my opinion. So I love this pick right here. This is the Penei Sewell answer. Not saying that he's Penei Sewell, because that is putting a lot of expectation on the young man, but I think he's going to be really good. And I think that that's a pure process pick that people won't really appreciate until Justin Fields is, just dropping bombs and Breece Hall has returned to form and all that good stuff. But nobody's going to be super excited about it unless you really understand how real NFL football gets played. Nobody's going to appreciate that. Like, casuals aren't going to appreciate that shit in April.
Spot on. It's a great analogy too with the Detroit side, because that's exactly the Penei Sewell thing. That was the year when it was Jamar Chase, right, and Waddle, and it was like, don't they gotta do that? No, take the tackle. He took the tackle, and now what?
I was screaming Cincinnati should take Sewell. I mean, hard to argue. You could argue both ways, but I mean, it's really benefited the Lions there. So, all right, at 8, you got Carolina taking Walker, edge, Georgia. He's kind of the name that I feel like I've heard a lot over the last 2-3 weeks, really kind of maybe some people sneaking him into somewhere like Jacksonville or, somewhere like New England. So somewhere a little higher than right here. I think this is a nice pick for Carolina here. What do you guys think? I'll go Chev first. It's your, you made some hay on the defensive line there.
I mean, with Jalon Walker, it's position versatility and the fact that this is one of the best athletes in the class. And then you hear the reports about what type of leader he is. Now, I mean, that they've been through the fight. They don't settle for anything less than excellence from a consistency standpoint at a place like Georgia. And you need to get guys like that in the building. Then on top of that, you add to the fact that he can play off the ball, or he can rush the passer. He might even be better rushing the passer than he is as an off-the-ball linebacker. He's a hell of an off-the-ball linebacker. So I think adding pieces like that, adding talent to the defensive side of the football is paramount, especially considering that they were on pace to be one of the worst units against the run in the history of mankind. So I love having Jalon Walker. I love the Jalon Walker pick here. I've seen a couple things like I was on with John Lobb, and he said that maybe Carolina goes tight end right here to help out Bryce Young. But I think for me, I need them to continue to build. If you want to be a good football team, take really good football players that have position versatility, and he could be really good at 2 different positions of need for them.
I'd agree with that. The one thing that they told us at the combine was that they were going to go defense. I do think that they like JT Sanders a bit, and Tommy Tremble. They've had on the roster for 4 years now. The one source I talked to, I know Tremble's like, Ian, the new age Ian Thomas of the situation, right? It's like this guy's just hanging around.
Ian Thomas still there too?
Yeah,
I think honestly, he might be gone.
I think Ian Thomas signed a deal with where'd he sign it? Raiders. He's a Raider.
Oh God.
Didn't realize that, but I was like, I knew he signed somewhere. Anyway, the one source I talked to, I was like, is this Jalon Walker thing? Does this thing have legs? And he's very close to the Carolina situation. And he's like, the only thing that I know about this is what caught me off. He's like, the only thing that I know about it is that he's not a layup, other than the idea that he's probably going to be available there. And the one thought that he had was basically the defensive coordinator's on a walk year, and the idea that you're going to bring this guy in that doesn't have a definitive piece in the defense, and he's going to be moving around, is much more something you'd see from like the Eagles or the Ravens or the Chiefs in a particular situation. Whereas like the Carolina Panthers need somebody now, every snap. Their galaxy dream is Mason Graham falls to 8. Ain't going to happen, but that's the dream because obviously they missed out on Milton Williams, and that's one of the top guys on their board overall. This is a weird situation. I think that they're in a weird situation. The Saints are in a weird situation. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Tet. The guy I talked to said that he thinks they'll go corner in the second round. So all of that leads me still back to Jalon Walker. And Dan Morgan came out and said that he wants somebody that has, how did he phrase it? He said, we need somebody that actually has like stats and somebody that played a lot in college. And it basically like took out the idea of like a Shamar Stewart type of a situation, right? Somebody that has, actual sustenance to their profile, not just like a projection, like we've seen from the Jaguars and Trent Baalke with Trevon Walker and things like that. So I think Jalon the right answer. And it's felt like it's been chalk, similar to like the Mason Graham to Jacksonville thing. But my guy told me, he's like, I don't think anybody in that building knows what they're going to do right now.
Got a couple more days to figure it out. All right. 9, New Orleans goes Shedeur. This seems to be the easy pick to slot Shedeur at this point now, especially with the Derek Carr news. What do we think? What are we thinking about Shedeur to the Saints going 9? Could make some sense. Cody looks unpleased with this situation.
I think it makes sense. I think in theory it does. I think the best reporter in New Orleans is Nick Underhill. I think he works for NFL or football or New Orleans.football. And he came out and said that he thinks he didn't say that he knows this, but he said, I think it's full rebuild time. And this team knew about the Derek Carr stuff, and now the public knows about the Derek Carr stuff. And he kind of viewed it as like a let Spencer Rattler take the ball type of a situation and draft for best player available, not for need, which need would obviously be quarterback, and take corner in the second round. And I don't really know what any of that means. It kind of leads me to offensive line, to be honest with you, take a right tackle type of situation. But Membou's off the board, you're kind of hands in the air. Could go receiver, could go a lot of different directions. The Shedeur thing, it makes sense. Don't agree with it, I don't think, from a if they're going to rebuild point of view.
What do you think, Chef?
Man, they have the Browns and the Saints have very similar problems in that they're in cap hell and they owe their quarterback a lot of money. And the only way to feasibly start to get out from under that is to start the clock on a first-round quarterback. So by the time that he gets to his third or fourth year, you're not as far under in dead money as the Saints are. And then if it were the Browns, they wouldn't be under the Deshaun Watson contract. I mean, I think it's 75 this year and 75 next year in terms of dead cap hit. And the Saints just have all kinds of void years that they're having to pay out for players that, I mean, I don't even know if they're still on the team. So I think that that's why this pick makes so much sense to me. I think that, we've seen Derek Carr melt under the press. Like anytime that he is like he looked like a world beater the first 2 weeks of the season. They scored 91 points. They looked incredible. And then his tackle gets hurt. Then his center gets hurt. And then all of a sudden, it got real scary. It got real spooky out there. We talk about Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. Derek Carr definitely saw some apparitions after his offensive line got hurt last year. So I think this is it. And I mean, we know that he can deliver the ball. The thing with Shedeur, I think people question is the overall arm strength and his ability to deliver the ball with velocity. But you've got a guy in Rashid Shaheed that can run under it and catch it. You've got a guy in Kellen Moore who's designed Dalton Schultz to a tight end 3 overall season. So you can figure out ways to get the ball inside, either inside the numbers or up the hash and function as an offense. So, and Chris Olave, if he doesn't get, blasted in the upside down again, which with Derek Carr not throwing him hospital balls, we might have something here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I like this pick here. Obviously, Cody, we differ in opinion on Shedeur overall as a prospect, but I like the pick here because if you want to start to get out from under all of the dead cap money and the cap purgatory, cap hell, whatever you want to refer to it as an organization, I think you start the pick, you start the clock on a rookie quarterback, and hopefully by the time he's in year 3 or year 4, you're out from under all that dead money.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't know if it's Kellen Moore's type of quarterback. We shall see. Also, we talked about the Browns or the Giants having to double up. If you put the ball in Rattler's hands this year and see what happens, and maybe be in the Arch Manning sweepstakes, bringing them home to roost and Grandpa's old stomping grounds there, could be interesting, but could be a trade-in spot potentially for Browns and Giants. Maybe if the Saints want to move off that. Yes, no. Any thoughts there, real quick?
I will say one thing, and don't take this the wrong way because I'm just going to say it general because I've heard it a lot the last couple of weeks. The Arch Manning idea. Again, I work for Orange Bloods. I cover Texas. He ain't coming out in 26. He's coming out in 27. Like they've said that they want him to get 30 starts in college. So
I like it.
The theory for New Orleans makes all the sense in the world. Like, hey, Tank, Arch will be out next year, but Arch ain't gonna be out unless something unforeseen happens. They win the national championship. He throws for 50 touchdowns, 500 yards, 80% completion percentage, and he shows like he's just the most polished prospect of all time. Archie, his grandpa, wants him to play 3 more years, 3 total, full-time starting seasons. So I think that's where the Saint logic might stop there. But hey, the class next year still has legs with Lenora Sellers and once Nico. We'll see what happens with Nico, but Drew Aller, guys like this. It's a better class than it is now, but I think I agree with you.
Yeah, that point about Arch is really important. They did mention, I think, I was talking to Dustin, who's doing some Devy stuff now, Casey. He was saying that like the man in camp wants him to have a certain amount of starts before he declares for the draft. So, I mean, there's no way for him to get to that certain amount of starts in 26.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We got picks 10 coming in at Chicago. We got Mykel Williams. Then 11, we got another Michigan guy, Kenneth Grant. You guys want to touch on any of those or you keep it moving?
It's interesting. The Chicago thing's interesting, right? I think my brain always just goes right to left tackle. A lot of people talk about Tyler Warren, talk about running back with Jeanty or Omarion Hampton, but people always forget that one edge spot's still open, and edge is a need. So I disagree with it. Don't hate it. Kenneth Grant, though, at 11, I love the spice. Kenneth Grant is an absolute monster. Watched him up close, obviously, against Texas, against that interior. Jake Majors would tell you the starting center for Texas that started over 58 career games. He'd tell you Kenneth Grant was an animal. When you watch these guys, honestly, Kenneth Grant is a little bit more of a pain in the back end than Mason Graham is. When you watch these guys and how they're dealing with them as offensive linemen, Mason Graham gets a lot of the shine, but Kenneth Grant does a lot of the grind, I would say.
My thing with Kenneth Grant is I think that he could have if he's used in a very specific way. So if he gets to play like one tech or he gets to play like a zero and just absolutely destroy a center, or you have to have, you're sliding a guard to try to block him before he gets upfield and penetrates. Like he has the burst and athleticism to absolutely ruin a game plan week in and week out. And it just like he would turn it on and he would turn it off. And that's why he's not going in the spot Mason Graham is, in my opinion, is because it's too inconsistent, but also he's 340 pounds. That shit's really hard. So but there's also film of him running down Katron Allen. So I get real excited when we talk about Kenneth Grant. That's why when I saw that here, I was like, oh my. But yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. San Fran needs somebody in the middle there. So that'd be a nice, they were soft, soft in that middle last year.
I feel like he could do what Javon Hargrave, like what they paid Javon Hargrave to come and do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. 12 Dallas Cowboys go Tet McMillan. We're all in the fantasy spectrum. How do we feel about Tet falling to 12? Because if he was going to 4, is this a flat circle situation? Is Tet go higher than this, or is this lower than this? What do you think, Cody?
I think it's kind of right. Cowboys definitely could benefit from going a different direction. Like, if hypothetically a Membou fell, plug him in at right guard for a year. Then let Terrence Steele move him to right tackle. Think the receiver thing, though, they've been trying, man. They've been trying with Tolbert, Ryan Flournoy, Jonathan Mingo. Like, the names just keep on going. And you put Tet in there, and it almost feels like I've definitely not been at the front of the Tet fan club because I think
any of us are, Cody. Nobody
Good.
here on the screen right now.
You're in a safe space.
Good. I love it. When you go in somewhere, you're like, am I the Tet hater here? It's like, all right, I don't hate Tet.
Not a hater.
I don't think anybody in this class is a true number one. Hear me out. When I say true number one, I think of a super alpha. I think of a Neighbors, a Chase, Jefferson, a Dynamo, 6 foot, 6'1", 5'11", whatever, 200 pounds. This thing. I'm not talking about a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", 212 pounds, and hey, played volleyball, he can jump a little bit and make contested catches. Like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, these are alpha betas. They're betas and alpha bodies. And that's what I see Tet as. And I think it's an excellent spot in Dallas. So going 12, to me, it's overdrafted. He's not a top 10 graded receiver historically. I think if you look back at it, in my opinion, but the fit, it kind of mirrors a little bit what they got in Cincinnati. The quarterback play is not to the same level, but you got Lamb in the Chase role and you got Tet in the T. Higgins role. And I sort of like it, but he'll be overdrafted in fantasy football. So I'm out on that from that perspective.
Chev.
I mean, it would make sense from a functionality of their offense perspective because you want to keep CeeDee Lamb moving around, getting the ball in motion, they're motioning him out and just getting free releases so that you can just continue to pepper him with targets and you can have Tet do some sacrificial X stuff. I mean, he's the 99 overall version of what you want from a guy like Michael Gallup. We saw Michael Gallup kind of function as the sacrificial X, like, hey, go win this 50-50 ball. Like once CD got there, it was pretty much, hey, we've got Amari, we've got Mykel to run all the sacrificial X routes. He's going to get more targets because he's a 12th overall pick, but you free CeeDee Lamb up to continue doing what he does, and then you have a guy now that could. So it would be great for fantasy. I'm in alignment with you. I don't think that. I mean, he's probably, if we put him in that class last year, he's wide receiver 5, 6, like where we would have him ahead of Brian Thomas, and then the games would start, and then people would be like, why did I have him ahead of Brian Thomas?
Yeah, but nobody's putting him ahead of the top 3 though.
Correct. So, like I said, 4 or 5, maybe. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean,
he'd be in that worthy lad Brian Thomas area.
Yeah. I mean, he'd probably be at the forefront of that because he's 6'4", 215. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, we've talked about this. I don't have him above. I wouldn't have him above Odunze. If Odunze was in this class, he'd be the wide receiver 1. If Thomas was in this class, just as a prospect, they're probably going back and forth. And people are, talking about how you have a complete profile versus just 1 year of production. So, yeah.
One question with that. So the one thing I've learned, and you learn stuff new every single year, but the one thing I missed with Thomas in that I followed him through, I went to the combine, watched all the tape, graded him, all this different stuff. And I thought he was a very underdeveloped route runner. And even when I went to the Jacksonville training camp in August last year, they targeted him a lot, but it was a lot of deep crossers and a lot of flies. And they would just rip the ball to him. And I was like, well, they're going to do that a couple times this year. That's going to be cool. But then they're going to hit Ingram and they're going to hit Gabe Davis and Kirk. And that's what they were doing the whole day I was down there for training camp. And then obviously Dynamo happens all season with Brian Thomas. And it's all these deep routes or these, deep crossers and all this different stuff that you don't need to be a developed receiver to do because you got this one trick. And the one trick is dynamism and 17 touchdowns at last year at LSU. And that translated because of his speed. Mm-hmm. It's the one thing, right? If you look hindsight and you're like, well, how does Brian Thomas break out? It's the one trick. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Tet has one trick.
No,
they say you can contested catch.
Yeah.
What is contest? But that's not a one trick. That's like, okay, well, when we get down to the 10-yard line, we're going to allow the ball to him and we know he's going to catch it. It's like, oh, well, you got to get the 10-yard line first.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like,
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. This is not we're not a super tech believer crew here. I don't,
more
unless
of a BT versus tech conversation.
Say it again.
I said, sorry. It was more of like a Brian Thomas versus Tet last year, kind of a hindsight, foresight type of a thing there. But I just don't see the one thing in Tet other than, man, he's got, he claims to only have like a 32 or 33 inch vertical, but that he played volleyball and his timing is what everything is. And it's like, all right, well, we're not playing volleyball, but this is the NFL.
I think he just moves really well for as big of a frame as he has. Like, not as far as a speed wise, but like he's pretty fluid. Like he can break down. Like I can't get like him running whip routes out of my head. Mm-hmm. And that I feel like that's kind of that's what makes him not be like, I'm completely out. Like I think he just, as far as the way he moves his body, like a lot of guys his size don't really move that way. But I don't think he's got a whole lot of, that one dynamo special talent. Like you said, I think that's kind of there for me a little bit because he's not really supposed to move like that. And it's not like, oh my God, you kind of have to pay attention to him. But if I had to give him any love, that would be the love that I gave him, outside of course, being God-given large. Yeah. So, all right, let's keep it moving. 13, we got Will Johnson to Miami. 14, we got Tyler Warren to the Colts. And 15, we have Mike Green to the Falcons. So we got Will Johnson. Talks of Ramsey leaving. I don't know how Miami doesn't go offensive line here. You just got Armstead retiring. It just seems that has been your Achilles heel for like the last few years. You've just been banged up on that thing. Doesn't seem like it's been right for a while. Maybe I'm off base there. Then Tyler Warren, either one of those tight ends go to Loveland or Warren going to Indy. That's disgusting to me. I'm out. Like it could be in a year. I might be saying something different. I'm not even an Anthony Richardson hater. I think he can get it together if he goes there and works, but I can't see three guys being supported in that offense. So yeah. And then, I think Mike Green's a lot of fun in Atlanta. So Chev, take it away with any one of those. We're just trying to move it along here with a couple of guys at a time.
Just Mike Green in Atlanta. I mean, they've been trying to solve the edge rusher problem for quite some time. So I think that's a hand in glove fit for what they're wanting to accomplish. I mean, Raheem Morris likes to have guys that can get after the quarterback. I mean, they tried it with Matthew Judon and Matthew Judon it didn't work the way that they wanted it to work. So with Mike Green and him, going to his pro day and putting up those elite, agility numbers, and then him running over, was it Connerly at the Senior Bowl?
Yep.
Yeah. Just, he's got the power. He's got we questioned whether or not he'd have the size. He comes in at 251. And yeah, I like Mike Green a lot. And I think this is a perfect landing spot for him.
Was he hurt for some of the season too? Mike Green?
He played 13 out of 13 games. I think he was good.
I thought he had something that he was playing through.
He might have. I can't remember off the top of my dome. Yeah. Though I like the fit with Mike Green in Atlanta. Everything Chev said was great. I think spot on. They've needed it. They haven't done it. They needed D-tackle edge. They didn't do it last year. Now they lose Grady Jarrett. They need to address the defensive line, period. Tyler Warren feels like it's been chalk for the Colts. Like you, I disagree with the thought there. They got plenty of weapons and not competent quarterback play. The Will Johnson thing, the only thing I'm going to say about this to Miami is Kyle Krabs, whose mock this is from the 33rd team. He also does, I think it's Locked On Dolphins or something like this. He does Dolphins work. So I don't know. It's a thought. I sort of don't think it's the right thought. I think it should be interior offensive line. I like Tyler Booker there, but it's worth note. Will Johnson there at 13 to the Dolphins. But chalk picks, I think Warren to the Colts. Again, potentially Loveland gets the bump over him. We'll see what the landing spot is for Loveland, but I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I think in
that
this
mock we
draft
did the other day. Go ahead, Casey.
No, I think in this draft where, I mean, Loveland's going to go to the Chargers here in a little while. I mean, that definitely, I talked about it with the landing spot with Loveland where it goes to Warren. We talked about it in the draft we were doing. Like those guys could really intersect with their value in fantasy, right? As far as where they're coming off the board. Right now you have, especially tight end premium, you have at least a half a round between them a lot of the time, super flex. And I think if this played out just this way, I think Loveland's either right in front of him or right behind him at that point.
I mean, Cody, is there a huge chasm of talent between Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland in your opinion?
No, they're just play style different. Like I think DJ said it best. Daniel Jeremiah, he said you have the Gronk type and the Kelsey type. And that's what these two guys are. You get the Gronk type and Warren. And I know those are obviously the top of the mountain, but the Gronk body type, play style, and then the Kelsey one. And it's like, to be honest with you, who do I want in fantasy? I want the Kelsey body type. I want the Colston Loveland one that, I could tell myself a story that what you just saw from Bowers a year ago, you're going to get a light version of that with Bowers. I don't know with Loveland. I'm not sure you can tell yourself that story with Warren.
Right.
Yeah. I like Warren to kind of like a Kittle, just with that reckless abandon, and Gronk would be there too. But I think Kittle's got great hands too. So, all right, let's go 16. Arizona takes Jahdae Barron out of Texas. So that's right up your alley. Then the Bengals go Gray Zabel. Maybe that could be a Cincinnati pick instead of going into your offensive line. I don't know how you feel about him. And then 18, Seattle goes Matthew Golden, which I'm meh on. Why don't you take the top of this one, Cody, starting with Barron from Texas, going to the Cardinals.
Jade's a stud. This is more, you can't really consider flat circle here, but Jahdae definitely was pushed up into the top 10 conversation over the course of the last couple of months. Wrongly, I would say. Really good corner, transitioned from inside to outside this past year, won the Thorpe Award. He's a stud. They need defensive backup. They need defensive line help in Arizona. So it's a great spot in Arizona. So I like Jahdae Barron there. And I'll just comment on the Matthew Golden thing, and then I'll pass it to Chev. Golden, again, covered him at Texas this last year. This landing spot's pretty sick for football perspective with Cup and JSN, but for fantasy, I'm a little saddened by it because I'm not sure about the target share.
Mm-hmm. Man, we've talked about Matthew Golden in that role with one. What the hell are the Bengals doing? Like, what are we doing?
Are you team edge for the Bengals?
Say what?
I was sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was like, are you team edge for the Bengals, or what's your position there?
Just get
defense. Anybody on defense?
Yeah. Like Jihad Campbell is right there. He's right there. Okay, so Gray Zabel had an incredible Senior Bowl. I think he's going to be a really, really good. I think he's going to be a really good player. I actually, early on in the process, like after the Senior Bowl, and people were coming back with cut-ups of how dominant he was in one-on-ones and all that stuff. I mocked him to the 49ers as a guard. And after Aaron, shortly thereafter, Aaron Banks leaves. So that looks really good. And then a 49ers mock actually did the same thing. So, but this really pisses me off. Like if you're committing to the bid at this point of having to score 35 points a week to win football games. And this is not, I don't like it. So, and then Matthew Golden, we've talked about this before. I'm not, there's people who say that his analytical profile is terrible and he doesn't really have a quote unquote breakout. And it was, very up and down. I'm like, okay. But my biggest question is are you going to get high value targets in Seattle? Like you're going to run the deep routes. You're going to play the Rashid Shaheed role in the Clint Kubiak offense. How many targets does that equate to with JSN and Cooper Kupp being the primary target earners? I mean, Cooper Kupp's got was it a 2-year, $3 or $15 million a year committed to him for multiple years. And then now you got first round draft capital and you need to shore up your offensive line so that Sam Darnold does not see, dead people and all that stuff. So yeah, that's my take on it. I like Matthew Golden. We know that he's going to get steamed up into the first round because he ran a 4.29 and he had some incredible performances in the college football playoff and in the biggest moments, the SEC championship. So yeah, I don't mind it. I just don't know what type of fantasy goodness this is going to produce.
Yeah. The Cup signing was a little questionable to me in general, but could they be in more 12 for kind of what they want to do as far as Seattle and schematically and then how does that break down? I would assume that means Golden's on the field primarily as one of those receivers, because then you would just have Cup and JSN, I guess, I don't know. So I don't know. I don't really love
JSN,
it.
JSN was number one. Yeah, JSN was number one in routes run from the slot. Slot snaps with like over 700 last year. So if you're going 12 personnel, like, what are we doing with Cooper Kupp? I'm
not saying that's what they're going to do. I just feel like they want to be bigger and run the ball. I feel like is kind of more what be their MO.
That's the thing. That makes Cooper Kupp make even less sense.
Yeah. All right, $19 go with your boy Campbell. We got 20. Now we got Hampton to the Broncos, and at 21 we got Jackson Dart to the Steelers. So we're getting late in the game here. So fun couple of picks. You just mentioned Campbell. Chev, what? I think this is a nice pick for the Bucs here coming in at 19.
I love Jahad Campbell. I love Jahad Campbell so much. Like he's a great, he's going to be their answer at the green dot linebacker once Levante David ages out, if he decides to age out or if he just retires. He's going to be, to me, what they wanted Devin White to be, but he's actually good in other phases of the game other than just run, jump, and tackle. Like he understands, he's a complete linebacker and he can get after the passer. So you get him in the same room as Levante David, it elevates that defense tremendously. And he has the versatility to rush the passer and play in coverage. So you get kind of that double red dogs, A gap. Like you can line him and Levante David up in the A gaps and then drop out and do all kinds of exotic pressures like Bowles likes to do. So I've mocked him here a few times. So I'm really excited to see this actually somebody else have the same brain with me on that.
Cody, your thoughts on those 3 picks?
I don't hate that. Campbell won it all, obviously. Tampa Bay's been making a stance drafting first-round defenders over the course of the last decade, it feels like, under Jason Light. So I think it makes sense. Campbell, I think, is very versatile. I know you said playing the green dot and stuff, but, man, this guy, he does a lot more than I think most people just think this guy's an inside linebacker. He can come off the edge and do different things like that. So not to get too deep into that, I know we're a fantasy show. Omarion Hampton. I mean, Denver Broncos. This is the
not today. We're not a fantasy show. You do whatever you want today. All right.
This is a 102 right here, baby. Yeah. This is Omarion Hampton. Come on down, Denver Broncos 102. I absolutely love this. I hope this is what happens. I hope these running backs. All I do is I just pray that all the running backs in this class land in good spots by themselves. And nobody gets the Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis treatment of playing together in a backfield with another athletic big boy. I hope they all completely crumble, these 30-year-old running backs, and they all get opportunities. No. Anyways, off that little box there. Great landing spot for Omarion Hampton. Obviously underneath Sean Payton, I love that. And then Jackson Dart. I don't know what Rodgers is going to do, but Dart, thinking that Arthur Smith offense, if they keep Pickens with Metcalf, this could be fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Chev, you got a comment on those other 2?
No, I mean, those are the nuts landing spots from a fantasy perspective. If we're talking about Jackson Dart leading the nation last year in deep passing and passes that traveled over 20 plus yardage, in passes that traveled over 20 plus yards. Now you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens with a guy who can absolutely light it up outside of the numbers. And I've said it, and I'll say it again. there's one thing that George Pickens is the best receiver in NFL at, is passes that travel more than 15 yards outside the numbers, and that's what Jackson Dart loves to do. So him and DK Metcalf, that would be absolutely fantastic from a fantasy perspective. And Omarion Hampton, I mean, that goes without saying. That cements him as the 102. He's ahead of Cam Ward again.
Do you think the Steelers drafting Dart there does anything to deter Rodgers from coming over there?
Yeah, he's probably going to throw a fit and retire. Because I mean, I told you I don't want that to happen. As much as it would be cool to have that for DK Metcalf and George Pickens, I do not want that to happen. It is a train wreck. Aaron Rodgers is one of my favorite players to watch of all time. I just have to watch him and not watch the interviews or read anything that he ever says out loud. And this is not a stylistic fit from a culture perspective. So, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Hopefully the Dart thing kind of shuts all that down and they go get a veteran or, whatever. They got Mason Rudolph, but that's just, taking a knife to a bum fight or whatever the saying is. So, I don't like it. I don't like Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. You've heard, I said that on the show a long time ago, and I'm staying consistent. I do not like it, even though it'd be cool from a fantasy perspective.
I think it'd be fun. But yeah, it's going through the thought process now that we're the week of the draft. It's like what Dart did in that Lane Kiffin offense. It's like if Arthur Smith can do a little bit, can build this thing the right way with Jackson Dart, with the weapons in Pittsburgh, if they can add a running back into that situation, this could be a really fun offense. And as soon as I think about that, I'm totally cool just watching Rodgers walk the other way after, finally getting to the point in my life where I was like respecting Rodgers and a fan of Rodgers from a play style perspective after hating him forever as a Packer. Now I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, this is the thought process of Dart here. I don't want that. I don't want to deal with the drama.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see it. I want Dart to sit for a year, and I want to see Rodgers come into Pittsburgh. I just want to see it. I want to see how it goes. I think Rodgers was playing pretty good ball at the end of the season last year. I think he was back to kind of being healthy. I don't think he was quite there yet, and I think he's got another run in him. And I think Pittsburgh. I think maybe Pittsburgh could humble him a little bit. I think, and they're not. I think him and Tomlin could be interesting pairing. And I wouldn't mind seeing Dart. Like, I actually kind of like when quarterbacks sit for a year or two. So I wouldn't mind seeing Dart sit.
Yeah, I mean, it just pick another quarterback other than Aaron. It's not.
There isn't anymore.
Kirk, maybe
Kirk, yeah, maybe. All right, let's keep moving. We'll try to get this thing over with here. We got Chargers taking Loveland. We got the Packers taking Shamar Stewart. And we have the Minnesota Vikings taking, I always mess this guy's name up, Nick Emmanuel. Yeah. Well, I live in South Carolina, watch a lot of Gamecocks. So I think, Shamar Stewart's an interesting one. I feel like there's a lot of either people love him or hate him, or they don't think he's maybe quite as good. Maybe I could be wrong there. The Loveland to the Chargers is, we just talked about a little bit. I think that would drastically boost his stock, and it does make some sense with the Harbaugh ties. Shev, what's your thoughts here?
I mean, I think that pick right there, Shamar Stewart to the Green Bay Packers, that is, I mean, if we can translate the athletic ability and what he put on display at the Senior Bowl into actual pass rush production, him combined with Rashawn Gary with what's his name, Devontae Wyatt and Kenneth Clark, you have a nucleus to start to, and then they got Edgerrin Cooper, which was an absolute smash. So you start to see the vision of how they want to build that team to win games, to be able to beat Detroit pretty much. That's what they're aiming for at this point. You have to have the horses in the trenches to do so. So he's good. I mean, he had a really good run stop grade. And if we can translate that into his athleticism as some sort of pass rush production, that's a really great pick. And then Aman Worry, the athletic freak, darling of the draft. I mean, darling of the combine. I think that's a great fit because so Cody, let me ask you this. Do you think that with like in Flores' scheme, a guy like that with, Harrison Smith kind of calling all the shots, if he can move around or they can be used like a chess piece, does it take that defense to a whole new level?
100%, dude. I'm from Minnesota. I was in Minnesota for 18 years of my life. My little brother's still there, and my brother goes to all the Viking games with his dad who has season tickets, and they call him. They're like, who are they taking? Who are they taking? And I was like, Emin Warry's got to be the guy. You put that into a Brian Flores defense after they lost Cam Bynum last year to the Colts, and Harrison Smith is going to retire after this year. If you watch Vikings, they move Josh Metellus around a lot. They've always moved Harrison Smith around a lot. Emin Warry is maybe going to be the funnest player to watch on that Viking defense with Brian Flores. I absolutely love that fit, maybe as much as anything in round one.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Thoughts on Shamar Stewart before I'm going to read the rest of this draft out and we'll talk about it.
I think that Shamar Stewart's a good landing spot there with Green Bay. I think Green Bay is also in conversation for corner. I think they've drafted DB 9 times in the last 12 years in the first 2 rounds. But they need to definitely take defense, period. And then the Colston Loveland thing. I think you're in consideration for 110, 111, and 1 quarterback dynasty rookie drafts if Loveland's a Charger. So, yeah.
All right. At 25, we got the Texans taking Ibuka. At 26, we got the Rams taking Carson Schlesinger. At 27, we got Baltimore taking Tyler Booker. You mentioned him earlier, maybe going to Miami as a choice. 28, we got Detroit going Donovan Azukaware. Somebody correct me here.
Close enough.
Ezeraku?
Ezeraku.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. 29, we got Washington taking Malachi Starks, Georgia. 30, we have Buffalo taking Derek Harmon. And then at 31, we got Kelvin Banks falling all the way down to 31, which I think you should go a little higher than that. And then 32, the Eagles get Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
So, double damn.
Cody, why don't you take us through any of those picks you didn't like, and then I'll throw it to Chev to wrap this thing up.
I think Chev said it great at the end there. And it's always weird, man. I think I'll just hit these 3 picks and I'll let Chev pick what he wants to go from there. You can do the same ones for all I care. Baltimore, though, getting Tyler Booker. Again, a guy that I think should be top 15 in this draft. A monster. The best interview at the Combine that I had talking to him in the media availabilities. This guy's a tank. He can plug in day one. And Baltimore just sits back, kicks the legs up, and then who comes to him in the late 20s? A player that shouldn't. And then 31 and 32, Kelvin Banks to the Chiefs. You got to be kidding me. This is stupid. This is stupid is what this is here, falling to 31. This will not happen. I'd be willing to bet the laptop I'm using, I don't know, that he does not fall to 31.
All of it.
Take a bite of the face.
And yeah, I take a pie to the face. We'll do it. We'll stream it the week after the draft. I'll come over. We'll pie to the face if Kelvin Banks falls to 31. And Walter Nolan, again, a stud that, he had a good Senior Bowl, and he was a year ago winner. The transfer portal, when he went from A&M to Ole Miss, it was like, that's the A1 steak sauce. Go get him. That's the guy. Maybe didn't play quite to that level at Ole Miss this past year, but this is a dog. And again, kick back, put your feet up. Howie Roseman, what's he get? You know what? We just let Milton Williams, who was our third round, super athletic defensive lineman, walk out the door. Next year, we'll let Jordan Davis walk out the door, and then we'll just have Jalon Carter and Walter Nolan playing defensive. What are we doing here? The best. I think that's the good get better. The
kind of this 20 to even into the next round. It feels like there's a lot of guys like Ezeraku's one who I hear in the second round, and then I hear also up here in the as early as 20 or whatever down through there. So it seems like there's a lot of interchangeable parts throughout this kind of mid first to mid second. So it's kind of interesting to hear your thoughts there. Chev, what are you thinking here with these last 5-6 picks?
Yeah, I mean, Cody hit it on the head. I would just like to talk about Malachi Starks falling all the way to 29. I mean, I think that's another guy that's going to come in and make a difference as a guy who's pro ready. And I think that they're gearing up to support Jaden Daniels on offense, but also they're plugging holes in their defense through the draft and then giving guys short deals. So they're hoping to kind of hit and build that way. So, I think Malachi Starks is going to come in and be a player day one. And then 31 and 32, it's the Jesse Pinkman meme. Like, he can't keep getting away with this. Like, Kelvin Banks falling to 31 feels ridiculous. And then Walter Nolan, I thought he would probably go. I think he's going to go higher than 32 just because you see the level of explosion that he has. And that's not something that's common for someone his size. He has a twitch about him, not to use too many buzzwords or scouting words or whatever, but like he has a first step and a twitch about him that defensive, the guys that have that just absolutely ruin game plans. And that's what Jalon Carter has. That's the level of, that's the type of ceiling I see for a guy like him. The problem is it's very inconsistent. And that's probably why he falls in this mock draft. But I thought he was going to be like a top 20 pick to me. Like every single time that I've done a mock draft, he's like, I will put him somewhere in the top 20 because he's that type of talent, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, boys. Thanks for hanging in there. I kind of want Kelvin Banks to go to San Francisco at like 11, but maybe that's a little too high. I feel like they need to. Either way, San Fran needs to attack the trenches. San Fran guy, please God, don't take a corner. Cody, where can we find all your stuff at? Where can the people find you?
You can find me over at rosterwatch.com. That's where all my content gets posted up. And then I got my daily show every morning, 7 a.m. on YouTube and on podcast. It's called The Draft Rankings Show. Sub 10 minutes. I try to keep it 10 minutes. Something about the NFL draft, something about fantasy, something to do with football every single morning. So The Draft Rankings Show. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Can't wait to do it in person after the draft. Yeah. See you guys in person at some point. So yeah, thank you. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, Chev.
This was awesome. You know where to find me.
And you can find him on the FF Dynasty, of course. But
number one, you can find me, in the comments, lurking on this video. I'll be there. Just wait. And if you want to know what else I do, just look on my Twitter X page. There'll be something that I'm retweeting that just came out or is out or whatever the case may be. So yeah, follow me there and you'll find all the stuff.
Appreciate you guys if you stuck with it on this one. I know this is mostly a Dynasty channel, but we're working on kind of maybe getting a more football forward show kind of going through this channel once the season starts. And at the end of the day, Dynasty, maybe not so much defensive linemen and all that stuff, but Dynasty is so much more than just the skill position players. It's all these parts and pieces kind of coming together, systems, lines, so there should be a lot more general football talk allowed in the Dynasty space. I think there's a lot of Dynasty guys who are really good at talking about these kind of things. So I think this should be more commonplace that, the Dynasty player listens to more this kind of stuff. And I think it could give you more of a competitive edge in your league. So that's why I'm interested in this. That's why I wanted to bring Cody on and Chev. I know you guys are both into the football side of things as well as the fantasy side. So I appreciate it, guys. I thought that was an awesome show. Until next time, peace.